So, back to Wilmington Spotlight, another episode. And today we have Erin on. Erin, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do around town.
Thank you for having me.
Of
it's
course.
Great to be here, Austin. My name's Erin DiCarlo. I'm the founder and co-owner of Dovetail Companies. We provide one point of contact for really any service an older adult or their family may need when experiencing a later in life transition. I'll put it that way.
Love that. Love that. And this is something that, you know, I talked briefly before we got on. We wanted to kind of film with it, but this isn't something anybody really looks into often when they're at, let's say, my age group. Like, I wouldn't be looking into any of this stuff until basically it's on top of my head. And I think that's one of the things, like, it's not something that I would be well-versed in senior services until I guess I get there or...
Yeah, you're in good company, Austin.
Yeah.
We live in a very ageist society. So not just here in New England, but our country as a whole really does not talk about, plan for, or embrace aging. And so many people haven't either witnessed an aging loved one. So if you think about it, since the beginning of human time, we were together, multi-generations in a cave or a hut or a home. It's really when women entered the workforce full time in the women's liberation movement that when that matriarch adult daughter was not home to bring in the aging parent, seniors started needing other housing options. And so we're going into really our third generation now of people like us growing up in homes without witnessing the aging process. And because of that, there's a lot of fear narrative around aging. Like, oh, I'm afraid of that. Old people get cranky and in pain, and
It's the unknown, right?
It's the unknown. But the motivating factor of why I do the work that I do is that that's not true. Ageism is one of the still socially accepted form of prejudice in our country. Like, oh, over the hill, 50, get the walker.
Get him out of the way.
Yeah. There's what's called elder speak. Like, oh, look at that sweet old man. It's super disrespectful because we're treating a whole class of people differently based on one factor, their age. And it's just not true. So over the last 22 years doing the work that I do, I have witnessed so many older adults thriving later in life, not living in fear or pain or doom and gloom. And so you're in good company in the fact that most people in our society don't talk about aging, don't plan for it until they absolutely have to. And that's always the worst time to be making major life decisions, when you're in crisis with limited information. So that's my why. The reason I get up every day is to combat ageism, show people that it doesn't have to be scary, that even with physical or cognitive changes, there's a quality of life to live. And I help people find that for themselves and really step into living their best life later in life.
Thank you. That's hopeful. That's hope for us.
Yeah.
But the other side of it too is, and I've noticed this, and you're involved in the community, and so am I, is like, there really is, you have the youth and you have the elderly, and that is two different sides of the population that they need help. Like, it is what it is. They don't always need, like you said, people sometimes overstep that boundary and take away all freedoms and activities from these two populations. But being in the main body of, like, the working population and things like that, there are responsibilities. Like you said, you don't just disregard. Once you get to a certain age, it's all of a sudden, like, we don't just take this group and say, all right, well, you've hit that curve, so see ya.
Not only that, I think we as a society, as a town, as a region, have really missed the opportunity to utilize the skill set, the life experience, and the guidance that older adults give.
Right.
So I've worked with thousands of older adults over the last 2 decades, and I've received so many blessings in the work that I do. But the number one blessing is the life guidance and advice that I've been given. So not only should we not disregard, we should be engaging.
Right.
And asking for guidance when the pandemic hit and really all senior service organizations closed their doors. So the senior centers were closed. The aging services access points were all closed. We made a conscious decision to stay open in business, boots on the ground, because Lauren Watts, my business owner, and I said to each other, if we're not out helping people, this potentially, needy population, who's going to? And I'm so glad we made that decision, because when the whole world was in a complete panic mode, I every day was meeting with seniors who said, take a breath. It's going to be okay. Until you see
There it is.
bread lines, like we're not, everybody relax. And we had a huge missed opportunity and continue to, instead of looking to the greatest generation who have lived
Right.
through all the things and asking, what should we do? Help us figure out a plan forward. We locked everybody up, threw away the key, and said, it's not safe for you out here. And I think, so we are what's called a certified age-friendly employer. So over 72% of my staff is over the age of 60. And the workforce opportunity by employing people over the age of 60 and over 80 is so missed in our society because we're not bringing them in. The difference for me, you mentioned children. I have 4 kids here in Wilmington in the school system. The difference between children needing our advocacy and support and older adults needing our advocacy and support, older adults have much more. Not that our children don't teach us things, but older adults have so much more to teach us and skills and assets to bring to the table by connecting and collaborating and supporting. And I think as a society, we've missed and dropped that ball massively.
So that's incredible to know. So basically, as a whole, society is disregarding what they see as basically a segment of the population that I guess wouldn't have use, when in reality, it's not only not that population isn't still useful, that they actually bring a lot of wisdom and a lot of things to the economy that we could definitely benefit from with all of their experience in life.
1,000%,
Right.
Austin. When you think about who has built our country,
Right.
who created these businesses, who have, paid into the taxes, made decisions on what should we build,
Right.
what shouldn't we build. And I love that we have Wilmington here as an example. When it was time to discuss a new school, we needed the new Wildwood and a new senior center in town. Our reserves as a town is something you don't see. We had and continue to have enough funds in reserve to do 2 massive, much-needed projects without increasing taxes, without
Right.
having to tap into other funds. That was all created from the older adults in this town who made great decisions along the way.
Right. So it's almost like their savings account they're pulling out of that, because I mean, that's where those funds in essence was during their working years in the economy, was when they put it away. So when people get upset that we're tapping into these funds, it's like these are the funds they put aside, and
That they
now
paid into.
we're using them to supply a senior center, which helps the population that actually paid into it, that actually paid for it, if you would.
Yeah, I'm glad we're going into this conversation. If anyone saw me throughout when it was the town meetings to vote for the senior center, me and my children were like dressed in yellow with yellow pom-poms down in front of Market Basket, raising the good awareness, because I think, misinformation is real. And some people in town thought that it would take away from the school system, that those allocated funds would, what about the kids? And what I said is, 1, because of the great people before us, we were in a great financial position to do this. But 2, yes, we have to give back to those. When it was time for a new high school, who voted that in and funded it? Our seniors.
Right.
When it was time for, Yentl Park, who voted that in and paid for it? Our seniors in this town have always said yes to what our younger people have needed. And I actually am like emotional and have goosebumps right now talking about it. I'm so thrilled that the town passed it, because if no one had been to the Buzzell Senior Center before, please go see it before it closes.
Yeah.
It's kind of atrocious the way
Right.
it's an example of how we in America kind of put seniors on the back burner. No one in this town would have allowed their kids to go to a school every day that looked like that. But that's what we had for an option for our seniors. So I'm thrilled and excited. And I think and I hope there's a beautiful opportunity in this town to bridge and gap these generations, bridge the gap of these generations. And I'll follow that thought. I have 4 children in the school system. And after 5th grade, we don't have a formal after-school program. So we have children at age 11, 10 and 11, who are out of school at 2 p.m., and most parents now have both parents working full-time. So we have a 2 to 5 or 6 p.m. massive gap for what to do with our children in this town. I think there's a beautiful opportunity for intergenerational program, maybe at the senior center, where, think about it, so many retired teachers, nurses, doctors can share their skill set with our younger generation. And we all have the basic human need that we need to be needed. We need to, it's actually called legacy leaving. It's like our final psychological development stage later in life. And because seniors aren't living in homes with grandchildren and great-grandchildren to pass down that knowledge and that legacy, this is a way to do it in community. So if you have these kids after school going to spend time with the seniors, and the seniors maybe help them with tutoring and homework or engagement opportunities, the senior is having a psychological and emotional fulfillment of legacy leaving and spending time with these kids. But I can tell you, these kids need it more than ever. They're between social media and gaming and too much downtime. We need our seniors to help guide. I can tell you as a working mom, like I would give anything to have that guidance.
Right. Somebody in the afternoon just watching them.
Yeah, or engaging with them.
And they got the time and they have the resources and the abilities. It's almost like a wasted connection right there. You can just see it.
And it combats ageism, Austin, for the next generation. So I mentioned the reason that we just kind of aren't comfortable talking about aging is because younger generations haven't been around older adults later in life and end of life. I think this opportunity would allow those younger kids to spend time with older adults and get to know, like, wow, they had first loves too, or math was hard for her too, or, you know, the gift of seeing people later in life demystifies it for younger people. And I feel like this experience would help that for them and our future thoughts on aging.
Yeah, and I'm happy to hear this about Wilmington because I think of things like, I think of WOW or We're One Wilmington or like I think of the July 4th committee or the community fund. These are amazing like groups and organizations we have in town. And I know from experience from just meeting some of the people involved that people have been doing that for like 30, 40 years. Like, and this is where some of these people that we're giving back the senior center type stuff to, you know, if you love the town, you love like for instance, the July 4th like celebrations or the many different festivals and things or parades and things like that we have in the town. Like a ton of that is actually due to, if not still to this day, very involved with that population that would be considered elderly to this day. Like a lot of those fraternal organizations in town, they're just very well packed with a lot of our elderly groups.
Older adults.
Older adults. There you go. And
the word elderly has this like
it's
stigma.
A bad stigma, right?
Yeah. So old, mature adults.
The reason why I think this is such a great thing to talk about and get down is I'm one of those stubborn individuals that like I like to run, I like to work, like I like certain things, like I'm a goer. There is no stopping, like, and I don't envision a later time, like maybe with grandkids, yeah, but I don't want to lose that quality of life. You said it, like I definitely want to experience as much time as I have with everybody, but I don't want to do that with a lack of quality, like as in like a state of, in my head where I go to my fears, like, oh, like mobility is one of them, right? Mobility is huge. Like if I lose all my mobility or I lose, let's say my mind, like I lose certain aspects of, you know, my memory or things like that, to just kind of write that off as like, oh, those years are just gone is a sad thought to think, hey, like maybe there are some resources that you're ignorant to that you might be able to,
100%.
right?
So,
you know?
so many things you just said I want to loop back on.
Yeah.
So many older adults were doers and goers and didn't sit still. And so when their body or their mind starts to age, the emotional and psychological impact of that is real.
Right.
And so
it would kill me.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's just not true. So I work with an amazing physical therapist. He is actually going to be part of our Engaging Aging platform, which we'll talk about soon. And he says it's just not true. So many older adults are just like, well, you know, bone loss, muscle loss. They succumb to the lie that like, oh, my body's getting old, so it's going to fail me. So I might as well just not do anything about it. When statistics prove that you can increase muscle mass, you can increase bone density later in life with exercise, with weight resistance training at any age. And so knowing, I always say this, we used to refer to ourselves as age well. Lauren and I, age well advocates and experts, helping people age well. But I've changed that recently to live well, age well advocates, because the secret sauce, so to say, is to live well earlier in life to increase your chances of aging well later in life. So the goer, the doer, to continue forever, even if, God forbid, you know, you have left side paralysis due to a stroke. Well, how do we continue to work on that right side to keep your mobility going? I also want to say this. Our physical and cognitive ability does not define who we are as a human. They're just like now, there's so many other aspects to Austin. Yes, you're physical and you're a doer, but maybe you're spiritual and you're social and you're a family guy. So if your body starts to fail you, how can we lean in more to the other parts of Austin? How do we continue that the spirituality and the faith stays strong? How do we keep those social connections strong and alive so that we're not just identifying ourselves with one part of ourselves, but we're really integrating all parts of ourselves so that if one area becomes compromised later in life, we increase the other areas. So that, to me, I believe social isolation is the biggest demise for most humans.
Right.
I will say this, I've said this on record many times before. I believe more seniors died in the pandemic from social isolation than they did from the virus.
Mental health, substance abuse, elderly, older adults.
Yeah.
All these populations, actually, isolation is one of the, probably if not the most dangerous and most common threat of like the
1,000%.
deepest, darkest times of those parts.
And what happens to older adults when we cast them in the shadow of like, oh, they're
Right.
old, they're no longer needed.
It's almost like we're leading them into the isolation.
Yes.
Like, here you go, here's your alone
Yes.
time. Like, instead of being like, and I do know, I have read in other countries, like for instance, like some European countries might have them, it might be as simple as sweeping the sidewalks, right? But it's a job that needs to be done. It's a job that people feel, you know, somebody's got to do it. It makes sense. And somebody wants to do it. This person gets up and says, you know what, this is where my level's at nowadays, where I have X amount to do. And, you know, I get up and I do that set of lists. Because that's kind of me. Even in my retirement, maybe I'm not doing the schedule I'm doing right now, or I'm doing any of these things.
But you'll be doing.
You said I'll be having a list. Because
Yes.
like you said, I think that's one of the things that keeps people going. I've noticed people retire. They just stop moving. They isolate. Like, to me, that's scary.
Fascinating studies around this. I work obviously a lot with like retirement specialists.
Right.
The first 15 to 18 months of your retirement is fun. You're just kind of sleeping
Right.
in or going with the flow. But after 18
Like, what do I
months,
do?
most people redefine themselves either in part-time work or volunteerism. I think about here in Wilmington, our after-school program for the younger children is called CARES. I think about all of the staff I've seen at CARES. Majority are young kids, so like high school, college kids, and a handful of somewhat older people, maybe in their 50s. The opportunity to have an amazing, skilled after-school staff of people over 60 or 70 in this town, it's just this missed opportunity. People need to be needed. I am a certified dementia practitioner. That's one of my certifications. And one really successful engagement tool we see in these memory care senior living communities is the residents are setting the table for dinner every night. They're folding the laundry. They're helping prepare meals. They're going around making resident beds. Yes, the need to have structure and routine and engagement and to feel successful.
Right.
Like we all need.
Check.
Yes.
I need that.
I'm helping.
Right. I'm doing something. Even if it's, like I said, sweeping a sidewalk, you've done from start to finish that job. And I've been able to say, all right, check.
And
Even if it's the
mobility.
level I'm at. Mobility, yeah.
When we look at, it's called the blue zones.
Exercise.
The blue zones in our world that have the highest longevity. There's an area in Japan, an area in Italy.
Right.
A lot of it has to do with our, not to get deep dive into science, but our vestibular system, which is our inner balance. So falls are the number one cause of death in America, right?
Really?
Yes, because it leads to usually hospitalization,
Something else, infection, breaking.
and then we're not moving, and then
Okay.
maybe pneumonia. It like is this
Okay.
cycle. So our balance is the most important success later in life. And so the reason these blue zones have such longevity is people are literally gardening, bending over. So when you think about if you bend
Right.
over and get up quick, you kind of lose your balance. Well, when your whole life been bending over, standing up, walking up high incline hills and mountainous area, your vestibular system over a life is really strong. Here, we're sedentary. We sit in the car. We sit at a desk. We sit and watch TV. We're not, bending and getting our equilibrium up and down. So we can find small things we can change in our life. But the number one thing, in my opinion, is engagement. We need to get out of our homes with people.
Let's take it there, because I think you had mentioned that that's actually an initiative you've started to, a direction you've started taking in. So what can we do? What is being done, and what are you doing?
Yes.
So what is this?
So we are so excited. Lauren and I just created our nonprofit called Engaging Aging. What we have found due to ageism in our country is that any services that are available for older adults are kind of segmented for people to access. They're in these individual silos. So if your mom falls and she's in the hospital and now it's time to go to a short-term rehab for physical therapy, people call us and say like, well, where do you recommend? I was given this list. Well, what we know is I can recommend a place, but like what's the long-term plan? What happened? What's not working at home that led to the fall? What's the background of the situation? It's not just like, what's the rehab for right now? Like I need the whole picture. What we have found is that when you call senior centers or what's called ASAPs, Aging Service Access Points, or you just Google this, people, because we don't talk about it, people don't even know what they're asking. They don't know what they're looking for, and they don't know what they need. So we've created a one point of contact resource. So we do a lot of community education on a million different topics, Austin, from living your best life with low vision to end of life planning. How do you want your death to be? Who do you want to be with you? What's at your funeral? We really want to demystify and destigmatize anything that has to do with aging. We have a podcast called Engaging Aging where we talk about intimacy later in life, urine incontinence. I mean, you name the thing, we're trying to just demystify it all.
All the things that we don't know about, it's all black in my head, it's unknown, and I just let it stay there because I'll deal with it when I get there is probably the majority of people's mindset.
Yeah, and not realizing if you address it now,
instead of crisis mode,
it may not happen to you later in life.
And that too, if I start to make choices better now, yes, and while I start to get limited, you'll help me with the strengths that I still have to keep building the legacy.
Yes.
Like this is a lot of hope, a lot of I'm glad we had this today. So this resource that I guess you guys are operating, so like this person has, instead of having to basically like, for instance, I would say access different institutions, whether it be government resources or whether it be healthcare resources, things like that. This centers it all. So
I'll give you an example. We work with the Alzheimer's Association and AARP. If you go to the alzheimersassociation.com or call the 1-800 number, they're going to give you resources for dementia and Alzheimer's support. But you may also need, and don't even know that you need, estate planning.
Right, stuff like that.
What do we do with the legal stuff if my dad was diagnosed with Alzheimer's? Caregiver burnout resources. How do people pay for care? So this will be a one point of contact. Name and email will give you unlimited free access to every resource you can think of. These will be small, manageable, consumable videos, blogs, and you can come and go as you need relevant information. And as always, here at Dovetail Companies, it is true free, complimentary information and resources. More than half of the people we talk to aren't becoming official paid clients of ours. They just need help. And we're not doing this to make money. We're doing this to really help people have a better quality aging experience. So I will explain like the actual services we provide as a business separate from our nonprofit. So we are what's called certified care managers. I hate the word geriatric, but the industry knows us as geriatric care managers. So we help older adults with planning. So understanding their estate planning, financial needs, what are the care options available to them, how to modify your home to successfully age in place at home. Or maybe home is no longer working for you and we need to help you understand what housing options may be best for you. And under that guise, we also support with estates. So maybe a family has lost a loved one and they're overwhelmed with managing the estate and the contents of the estate. Our separate next set of services is what's called senior and specialty move managers. So after we help people create a plan, our team, we have 42 staff, our team specializes in what to do with your stuff. Mm-hmm. So believe it or not, downsizing, right-sizing, and moving is usually the biggest obstacle for older adults. They've lived in their home for 60 plus years. Right. It's full to the gills of memories and stuff. So we help with estate sales, donation coordination, packing and moving. And then our final service, we are senior real estate specialists. So helping our clients receive top dollar on the sale of their longtime home to afford whatever this next step is. So most seniors are not well informed of what the expense is for care or tapping into the equity of their home to afford to stay home. So we have expert resources for if you want to stay home, but you don't have the liquid cash and we need to tap into your equity, we help people with that. So I know it's a lot, but essentially anything that has to do with aging, if you're feeling overwhelmed, you can call us at Dovetail Companies and we will make sure We connect you with what you need or help you through this process, and it starts complimentary.
Well, thank you, Erin. And I'm really glad we got all this in today because, one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on was, the youth, the older adults. I wanted to kind of talk because I feel like, these are some of our marginalized populations that, like you had mentioned right from the get-go, and you've repeated, we just forget about a very useful population that has a ton of wisdom and a ton to offer.
And I want to, get this thought in too. If you are a young person or you have children and you also have older adults in your life,
right,
connect them. We overthink everything.
right.
Make your kids go spend the afternoon. Don't be there to hover.
Right.
Drop your kids off to the grandparents. Your parents
They know what they're doing.
They know what they're doing.
They got it.
They raised kids.
They kept
Bring
you
your
alive.
babies
Right.
around.
Right.
My babies, who are now almost 14, my older two, 14 and almost 12, grew up climbing up on the wheelchairs of my residents. I worked in assisted living when they were little. Bring the kids around. It's meant to be that we're all together.
Mm-hmm.
We need to stop separating and stop overthinking it. Bring your kids down to the new senior center.
Many generations, that's how it was.
Forever.
There was like a couple generations that's kind of come out, but you're seeing it come back in, especially with home prices and all the things you're seeing nowadays with the cost of everything. We're seeing this happen a lot more now.
Yeah.
Generational homes are coming back.
I love it.
I live in one.
There's one called the, I saw this on Facebook or something a few weeks ago, the Granny Pod. I think that's ageist to say granny, but it's these like small mini homes that people are bringing.
Oh,
those.
It's like a pod for the backyard.
It's like these cute little homes, one floor living.
I've seen these online where you just, it's basically a shed in the backyard, but it's
nice.
Heated and it's watered and it's like nice, right?
Yeah.
It's a beautiful little spot for them. It gives them independence on their own without taking away from, it gives them like a safe area, but independence as well. My mother, that's one of the things when we talked about her coming into the in-law, that was like the main thing was we need like to make it seem like these are two different spots.
Yeah, everybody needs their independence. Yeah.
Right, because that doorway, even though that threshold represents the one that my son loves to kick open, because he loves the other side with Grammy on it, like you said.
And she loves seeing him too.
That threshold is so thoroughly important.
Yes.
It gives not only us our
autonomy,
kind of freedom and autonomy, but it gives her. It's mutual. She wants it just as much as we do.
I think the biggest challenge we work with families, and I want to say the gift we give adult children and families, parents don't want to be parented.
Right.
And so it comes from a well-meaning place when children swoop in and take over. It doesn't go well. So encourage. So we always work directly with the older adult. And the kids are like, whoa, 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 whoa. I don't know. I don't know you. I'm like, nope, please take a step back. I'm going to work with your mom. She's my client. It always goes better. So if you're an older adult, if you're an adult child listening to this, really, call us for resources on how to do this, but let your parent be their own decision maker. Don't step over and take over. So thank you for having me. Anytime you want to do a deeper dive into any of this, I would love to.
We're going to have to, now that I know this world and all these resources exist, we got to make sure that we're connecting these populations.
Yeah.
That's the whole idea behind the Spotlight podcast is did you know Wilmington has all this?
Yeah.
And so a great connection, Erin. Thank you for coming through on this.
Everyone call Terry Marciello at the Senior Center. I know we're just opening it in a couple of weeks. Yeah.
Valentine's Day, so 2 Fridays. We're coming up.
So love your older adults here in Wilmington on Valentine's Day. Come check it out. It's beautiful. And I would love to collaborate with anyone in town that this topic is resonating with.
Right.
I'd love to put together a group that's going to bridge these age gaps. So reach out. It's Erin at dovetailcompanies.com. ERIN, Erin at Dovetail Companies. I'd love to hear from you.
And one last plug on the nonprofit you just started.
Okay, so Engaging Aging. The website's not up. We're getting grants and funding now to get it going, but follow Dovetail Companies at Dovetail Companies on all social, and we'll just keep putting information out as it's coming.
And you'll let us know.
Yeah.
Rock and roll. This is great. Thanks, Erin.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it.